So yeah, I mean, geez, it's been a pretty interesting few days, huh? Um, you know, it was predicted obviously that we would drop quite substantially with Bitcoin. I've kind of cleaned my chart up a little bit because obviously I had a lot of fib levels showing on here with the Bitcoin long that we had. Now, obviously, our entries, I think 82,000. I can't remember what I specifically put, but that was essentially the final DCA. It's basically the final DCA, and the average now is basically around this level here. It's around the $86,000 region. Um, I really wanna, I really wanna see us like hold this low that we've just made. Um, if I kind of stretch this out a little bit, I've actually taken most of the fibs away. So I've taken the 618 away. I've taken the 786 because we just basically broke through it. The only reaction we had on a much higher time frame was on the 88.6% fib level, which was basically at 80,598. And we essentially touched 80,600. So, I don't think it's a massive coincidence that we've basically touched the 88.6% fib level. We might see a reaction. I can't confirm that obviously Bitcoin has found a low. I mean, if we look at it here, we had a reaction, but you can still see the selling pressure is quite strong still. This candle, the wick, pretty much got eaten up. We then tried to push up a little bit further, and we are still seeing some substantial selling pressure. So it's really hard to say if we have bottomed yet. I mean, I'm a little bit more bearish now than I was a week ago. It was kind of like a 50-50 really. In terms of, are we going to go and see that 150k, or have we started basically a break of structure and a bear market? I don't always want to use that term, but yeah, there is a chance that we might be heading towards a bear market. Now, technically, we can go a little bit lower. We can even go maybe visit around this area here where these previous lows are, 75 to 77k. So I'm not going to be like hugely surprised if we saw it. It's not what I wanted. Okay, it's kind of what I wanted, but yeah. It's not really something I really want to see Bitcoin do. I was really hoping that we would get a bit of a bounce on the way down. We didn't get that. We haven't got that at all. Which is a little bit concerning. This has just literally been like downward pressure for quite some time, and the only time now is basically here where we've started to slow down marginally in terms of selling pressure. Bitcoin is on the daily massively oversold. That doesn't necessarily mean that we've found the low. I'm going to keep stressing this. An oversold RSI on the daily is a good indicator that we should get a reversal, but it is not an indicator that we have found low. So like here, back in March, the RSI was very oversold. The low there was 78,200, and then you can see the RSI was slightly higher, so we had some bullish divergence, but you can see that the lower, Bitcoin was obviously a lot lower. It's a few $1,000s lower. So, you know, we can go lower. We can go a few $1,000s lower. I think it's just going to be, we're just going to need to see what happens. You know, I mean, if we look at the weekly as well, the weekly looks pretty terrible, to be honest. It does look pretty terrible. But, you know, we've obviously found some kind of support here at the 88.6% fib. If we do start to see some upside, then we can take if this is the local low, we can take a fib from that high to the low, and we can basically add some resistance areas here. So initial resistance, if we do, if this is a reversal, is going to be at around 91,500. If we push a little bit higher, we may get up to like 98,000, and then we've got 103,000. I might even put the 618. Might not get reached, but I'll put it on there anyway. So the 618 obviously is going to be taking us to around 108,700. What I said on my channel is that there is a chance that Bitcoin is forming like a head and shoulders, basically. So you've got the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder, and then this is basically when we start to go down. So this is obviously a real probability. Okay, I definitely wouldn't dismiss this, but it's just not looking very promising at the moment. You know, we've basically been in this uptrend since January 2024. So basically almost 2 years we've been in this channel. This is a channel here, right? We've basically been in this uptrend for almost 2 years. And, you know, we've basically broken below that. I think last week, and us closing that candle last week was definitely a warning. It was definitely a warning. I mean, you know, there is a chance obviously that we can retest this trend line. You know, and this is where the fibs possibly align, right? So, you know, in the next couple of weeks, we might get a relief rally, which would be really good, right? But yeah, this would only be, in my personal opinion, this would only be possibly a 3-wave move into resistance before we then get more downside. That's the way I'm currently seeing it. We haven't really had any, if we look at the lower time frame, we've not really had any substantial indication that we've bottomed, that this is basically the low. You know, what we have here, in my opinion, is still like a 3-wave move. I think we need to basically, I mean, this it's pretty hard to even call that a 3-wave move, to be honest. This looks like a little 1-2, and then we might get like a little push up higher, possibly to retest this $86,000 region here, which is currently acting as resistance now. It's like the next level of resistance because we have this swing high here. But remember, this is also on the smaller time frame. This is on the 30-minute chart, okay? So, but how we really get confirmation that we have a low is by watching the smaller time frame. And, you know, it's just not clear at the moment that we have formed a low. Bitcoin still looks weak. This, you can see, I mean, you can see it here, right? Like, this was literally just a retest of the area here that is now basically acting as short-term resistance, right? Like, you can see that it's pretty obvious. I mean, I can make it more obvious by just literally drawing a line here. So, there's a chance that Bitcoin is kind of establishing a temporary range. By that, what I mean is that, we'll just kind of range a little bit in this region for however long, a few days. Buying pressure has slowed down. I won't deny that it has slowed down, but I'm not seeing any. There's no bullish divergence at the moment. We look at the RSI here on the 4-hour, and we look at it down here. It's oversold. So, and also this is not bearish. This is not bullish divergence at all. So there's really no indication that Bitcoin has formed a low. And until we get a 5-wave move up on the smaller time frame, I can't really say that we've formed the low. There is still a high likelihood that we actually drop down a little bit lower. And we're getting into weekend trading now. So I think we just need to stay really, really cautious. Personally, I don't think it's looking too good. I think at the very least we might get a retest of around that $103,000, $105,000 region. Maybe this trend line that we broke out of. But I think a lot of people are going to be exiting positions that they were stuck in at that point. I think obviously all of what we've seen is basically a red flag that there is a lot of weakness in the crypto sector. And, I said this a million times. Bitcoin was at 17K. It was at 17K. It basically 10x'd. And we can't really expect a lot more than that in this bull cycle, to be honest. We've kind of had the main rally. I've said this a few times now. We've had the main rally. We've had the main rally with Bitcoin. We've had the main rally with Solana. I remember during the bear market when Solana was $9 and it went up to $300 now. So, people have had the opportunity on spot to buy Bitcoin, to buy Solana, to buy all of these altcoins. I appreciate some altcoins obviously didn't move as much, but that's just the way it is. I mean, I think Bitcoin has probably outperformed most altcoins that I can see. So, I mean, that's kind of my analysis of Bitcoin. I think we just need to just keep an eye on it for the weekend. And just be aware that, we might not have found a low yet. I'm obviously watching it because, we obviously have that signal of the Bitcoin long. So obviously watching it there. But obviously, probabilistically, there is a chance that we go lower. Okay. So, Ethereum. Next thing I'm going to talk about is Ethereum. So, I mean, I kind of mentioned this a long time ago, and this hasn't moved. This ABC structure that I drew, this literally hasn't moved. The way I was seeing it is that we would be getting an A wave down, a B wave up to retest that trend line, and a C wave down. Now, obviously, the C wave. I mentioned we might be getting $2,600. We basically got there, right? We got to $2,623. So this is an expected bounce on Ethereum. What I can do is I can add the 618 back, and you can see that is basically where we got a reaction. You can see that there was previous highs here. This was acting as some form of resistance previously, broke out of it, And this is essentially the retest. This is how I'm seeing it right now. So personally, I think Ethereum is looking pretty good. I don't think Ethereum looks too bad at the moment. But again, as I said, we could go lower. You know, we could possibly retest this $2,100 to $2,300, $2,400 region here. This would kind of be the lower part of this previous range that was here. But, you know, we bounced off the 618. We bounced off the 618. I say bounce, we've touched it. We basically hit the 618 and we're kind of hovering around it. We haven't really had a substantial reaction so far. You know, and that's the slightly worrying thing at the moment, is that we are basically hovering around the 618, just staying stagnant, to be honest. So as I said, you know, with Ethereum, there is a chance obviously that we could drop a little bit further. Maybe even test the 786. It'll be quite deep, but we might get that. Then we might see some kind of recovery, possibly up to around maybe 3,500, 3,400, and then go back down. It's really hard to say if Ethereum is obviously going to push higher. I mean, you know, technically, from an Elliott wave point of view, as long as we're holding this $2,160 region for Ethereum, Ethereum has still got the bullish opportunity to get to $5,000 to $6,000, $7,000 to this orange region that I highlighted here. So it still has a chance to get there. We are basically now pretty much oversold on Ethereum, and you know, if we look, oversold on Ethereum most of the time is a good indicator. It's a really good indicator for oversold Ethereum. You know, but here's an example. Back in July 2024, Ethereum was at like basically where we are now, and we still basically dropped down a bit lower, and the RSI even went lower. I say a bit, you know, it dropped down another, you know, 20%, 30%. So, you know, it's not a bad idea to start scaling in at this point, but you know, this is not where you would go all out like a crazy person. Now, the other one I was looking at was Link. So obviously, Link has looked like a really, really good buy for a long while. However, you know, like all the alts, it obviously got quite badly capitulated on the 10th of October. And that obviously led Link to get all the way down to $8. Now, technically, you know, I think if we close the weekly candle below this trend line, I personally would see this as very, very bearish. I showed you this in the chat. So, you know, this sorry, let me just switch. Yeah, this trend line here has kind of been acting as some level of support for Link since 2020. 2020 has been acting as a form of support. And we're currently below it at the moment, depending on how you want to draw this. But yeah, we're basically below it. Okay? And I think if we really do close the weekly candle below this trend line, we might be lucky to get a retest, but I really don't see us going to all-time highs at this point. You know, one can argue, well, you know, maybe it would just be a deviation. But I don't really want to see Link spending too much time below this trend line. I think it's going to be a really bad idea if we spend time below this trend line, because we want to basically get back into our weekly range as soon as possible. You can see though that obviously RSI has been going down for quite a while, but the selling pressure has got substantially weaker. So yeah, I mean, there's not too much more to talk about Link. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm currently still in it, but obviously we have a stop loss for a daily close below 1233. We'll see how tight the stops become here. I might leave it open for another day depending on where we close this daily. The stops on Link obviously are quite tight, so let's just basically see where we go with this. I think I mentioned also as a kind of rule that a lot of the time these wicks, these massive wicks, we do tend to fill 50% of the wick, and we have filled 50% of the wick. So don't be surprised if we do see a reversal. It would be expected, but I can't say for sure because the market looks pretty terrible at the moment, and Link is not an exception. Link falls into that category as well. You know, on the lower time frame, it also looks pretty terrible. You know, you can see we were trying to stay above that trend line, that weekly trend line, but then we obviously broke below it. And as I said, you know, there is a possibility that we might get a retest of the trend line, but then I don't expect first time round for us to get back over that trend line. If we do get close to entry though, I might possibly close Link, but you know, let's just see how this goes. I mean, this is meant to be spot. I might possibly close near entry and then make this a slightly larger swing position. Give Link basically more room. And by that I mean, if we look at it this way, and we see this as basically a completion of a substantially long cycle, then you know, if we take this fib to the top, so of the basically we take it to the low and to the high, you can see that we touched the 786 down here back in April perfectly. But then you can see this for me was a 3-wave move on the weekly. That's a 3-wave move. That's not a 5-wave move. So there's still obviously a possibility that we could just break down, you know, and go all the way down. The last resort fib obviously on this, so 1036 is going to be a very, very important fib level if we obviously get it. You know, it is definitely going to be something to be aware of. The next one is obviously going to be, well, the final one in my opinion, it's not really going to be any next one, is the 886. You can see that wick that we had on Binance basically already revisited the 886. So, you know, have we bottomed? Possibly on Link, but there's still a good chance that we could fall back to $10, $10.50. And then obviously worst case scenario would be going all the way to $7.7. These are quite far off at the moment though. They are quite far off, but we need to obviously observe how this weekly candle close is going to look. I think that is going to be very, very important for Link. One thing I wanted to go over as well, which I've talked about a lot, is USDT dominance. And I've said this for a long time, that USDT dominance has looked dangerous for as long as I can remember. You know, it was basically here that we had this really nice decline. We had a bounce in March 2024. Then obviously we retested the trend line. December last year had a really, really good run for alts and Bitcoin. And then what was a little bit concerning was in April. I think we all remember that. In April, we kind of broke out of USDT dominance, but then obviously went back under. That for me was like the first warning. Definitely first warning sign that something is possibly brewing. Something is changing. maybe USDT dominance is starting to build up strength. And, you know, you can see here that, I mean, this is no longer relevant because it's no longer a triangle. But, you know, you can see here that we didn't even get to that 3.76% level, which was basically acting as our support for USDT dominance. We didn't even get there. You know, we basically bounced before we even got there, you know, and made a higher high. So, you know, obviously USDT dominance is at resistance, right? I mean, you could see this. We are basically at the start of 2024, or kind of not start, it's probably more middle, mid 2024 levels at around 6.67%. We have basically reached that. So, you know, it's expected that we obviously get possibly a relief rally from here. But then we might possibly just get continuation. Now, the other alternative is obviously we continue to go down on USDT dominance, and then we eventually break the support level. And that's basically going to be our alt season. I personally don't see that happening, even though it'll be really, really nice. I just don't see it happening. I think it's just going to be like way off. And for now, I think we need to just focus on what Bitcoin is doing most of the time. Because that is ultimately what's going to tell us what we should be doing in the market with other altcoins, basically. And Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance obviously massively spiked back in October 10th. It retested that weekly trend line that it lost. So, you know, we also retested again the 382 and the 50% fib level. So, you know, Bitcoin dominance, by the look of it, could possibly go a lot lower. I mean, we could possibly break below that swing low at 56, 57%. So, I mean, if we do that, that's obviously, it would be a good sign for alts, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I think for now, obviously, we just need to keep an eye on Bitcoin, keep an eye on the levels that we have. And yeah, I mean, there's not too much more than that. Like, I'm going to just quickly really go through a couple of alts that I've obviously been keeping an eye on. I also have a pretty yucky cold, so my throat is struggling and my nose is stuffed, so I might not be able to talk for too long. But let me load up Doge. Yeah, so see, this is and again, this is another example of how we could possibly have it as a deviation below this weekly trend line that Doge has been holding. Obviously, you can see now that it's possibly breaking. But I wouldn't really want to see us go below this level here. Just make that a bit better. This 13-cent level here, because this is basically where we have our previous low. Our important low anyway. I don't really count the 10th of October as a proper kind of candle. I mean, there isn't a candle closure, right? There isn't a candle closure below that weekly. But it was so fast, it was very difficult to determine if this is even something that we should be taking notice in terms of Elliott wave analysis. But if we see this not as a bullish move anymore, if we just see this as an ABC structure to the downside, I mean, an ABC structure to the downside is going to be pretty bad. Let's just put a couple of fibs on here. Yeah, I mean, I think the most important is going to be the 618. So you got the 618 fib at 8 cents. Where's the 50%? Well, my fibs just always run away from me sometimes. Let's just clean this up a little bit. Come on. Alright. 0.5. Like that. So you got two very important fibs at the moment. You've got the 618 golden pocket fib, and you got the 50% fib. And the golden pocket 618, it takes you exactly to the previous low here, basically 8 cents. Could happen, it could happen. And if this is an ABC structure to the downside, typically the A wave is the same length as the C wave. So if we went by that logic, and that's our A wave, and then we kind of are like, okay, where's the C wave going to take us? C wave basically takes us bang on to that 8 cent level. So it just seems a little bit dangerous right now. There is a chance we can go lower. I imagine we will get a relief rally, but I don't know how soon that's going to be. In Doge's case, for instance, we might just retest that trend line and then reject, and then all the way down we go to that level that I was talking about. At the very least, we would hit the 12.5 cent level, and then obviously from that point, it's basically free fall all the way up until 8 cents. Okay, I'm gonna go through one more coin. I'm struggling to breathe, but I'm gonna go and have a look at Solana, because Solana has been I think Solana's been actually pretty strong. I'm not gonna knock it. I say strong, obviously it's it's not basically tanking and going to zero is essentially what I mean, but we are still obviously within the support zone. What's really funny is that we had that Soul short open. I think I closed it too quickly, to be honest. I shouldn't have even taken any partials either, because it was such a good call. We literally were shorting from this $151 region all the way down, and it basically wicked our target at $122. We got down to $121.66. So that would have been a really, really nice short if we held it. Obviously we took profits along the way and closed it like a little bit higher, but it was still a pretty good short. Anyway, minus that, we've kind of reached one of my main targets for Solana. So, we look at it now. Could we get a relief rally? Yeah, sure, of course we can. We could possibly get a 3-wave relief rally to $175, but don't expect that to hold. I do expect us to go and reject and go all the way back down to the $90, $79 region. This is just a place of interest, I think, for a lot of bulls. And we have seen a reaction, but it's not substantial enough to say that we've basically got a low in place. If we look at this isn't really enough price action to say, yeah, we've got a low. I'd like to see us push a little bit higher. So if we do treat this as possibly a structure like this, and basically for a third wave targets is always 1.382 as the first target. So if we get a 5-wave move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we break past resistance, then yeah, there's a good chance that we could say that the low is in. At least the local low, though. It's very important. At least the local low. Because, yeah, sure, we might get a push back to $160, $170, but that doesn't mean that we're going to all-time highs. I would be more confident to say that we are going to more to all-time highs for Solana if we break past. Slow this a little bit. So yeah, if we break above $170, I would say, then we could say, okay, there is a good chance that Solana has bottomed, and we should see an upside reversal. I don't see that at the moment. So I think we just have to be very, very cautious of the market at the moment. Anyway, let me jump to chat just in case there is any questions. Thanks, Yahya boy. Do we change it from daily close to weekly close for link? It's very hard to say. I mean, I might, purely because, you know, we've only got like 2 days left of trading for this week. So for link, I might change it to a weekly stop loss. My only concern is obviously if we literally just continue to drop and drop and drop and we get to $10.3 or even $7. I mean, I wouldn't really want to be closing. I wouldn't really want to stay in this trade right now if the daily is going to close below our stop loss. But I think we can maybe be a little bit more generous with our bids, so we can possibly give Link some more room. But, you know, I mean, it's hard because if we lose this weekly level, that's a massive, massive weekly level that Link would have lost. And I wouldn't want to really be looking at anything bullish anymore, to be honest. At least not on Link. I wouldn't really be looking at anything bullish. I would be looking to short it where I can. So I might change it to a 2-day stop loss. So basically tonight and tomorrow night, if we close below 12.33, then I think we close the trade, to be honest. I think we close the trade if we can't get it back above that level. So legit is talking about MMT. Hey Ghost, yeah, sorry man, I've been feeling like crap, and also I just got delayed massively. Let me quickly go through MMT that legit mentioned. Oh my god, I'm so fucking ill. I'll quickly go through Bitcoin again, Ghost, for you, but then I'm gonna bail because I'm like dying slowly. So yeah, I just got cold, honestly. You know when your nose is like super blocked and you feel like you can't breathe. Yeah, so MMT, I mean, wait, legit, is this actually the one you're talking about? Because this looks like a pile of shit. Dude, why'd you always send me these things? This is like, I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, I'll give you my basic analysis of this. This is a coin that has basically been around for like 2 weeks. It's retested this zone that it lost as support, and it's rejected. That's as good as we're gonna get right now. That's my analysis, man. That's my analysis. You know what? Next, like, honestly, Ghost, legit, come on, man. You got better coins than that. Come on. Joker, you better be you better be shorting from that. Someone's talking about a Zig. I've never heard of it. Let's see how much. See, I mean, me even putting MMT has basically like broken TradingView. TradingView doesn't want to know anymore. It's like it's not loading. My internet's fine, isn't it? Yeah, my internet's fine. Let me just check. Oh, come on, TradingView. Everyone's trying to hog it. Maybe BlackRock are selling again, bringing the servers down. Yeah, sorry, I'm just waiting for it to load. This is definitely not my internet because let me check on my phone. Let me do a speed test. I'm pretty sure the internet is fine. Yeah, internet's fine. Got 500 meg. I don't know what's wrong with TradingView. Can anyone else access TradingView? Because TradingView just seems like it's just died for now for some reason. What the fuck is going on? Well, I mean, at least it loaded Bitcoin, but it's not loading anything else for some reason. It's just stuck. Let's see. Yeah, my internet's fine. I think TradingView is just shit. Are you guys having luck with TradingView? Because oh, I'm just going through the chat now. Can you check Asta? Yeah, I want to check a bunch of stuff, but yeah, for some reason it's let's try and reload again. Yeah, I think TradingView's given up for some reason. There must be some. Maybe there's an outage. Maybe there's an outage because it all looks good on my end, unless they block my IP address for some reason. But I haven't done anything dodgy. Yeah. So for the sake of Ghost and maybe a few other people that joined late, I was talking about Bitcoin initially. You know, and sorry for the people who were here from the start, and I'm repeating myself. I should probably not have changed the time span either, because it's probably not going to load now. But yeah, basically, this is like totally freeze framed, but there was this trend line that I drew from, oh, it's loading now. Yeah, so, what the fuck is what is TradingView doing? Anyway, yeah, so we broke below this level. We broke below this very important trend line that we've been holding for basically like a year. I think it was like, I dare move it. It's like January 2024 we've been holding this level, and we broke it. That was basically the first indication that this is something that's changing. Also, typically Bitcoin has like a 35% drop, 34% drop when it's correcting. We've got that. We also smashed through the 618 and the 786. Our last result was literally the 88.6% fib at 80,598. We basically touched 80,600. So we basically touched this 88.6% fib, and we've obviously reacted to it. We're also very, very oversold on the daily. So, you know, in theory, and this is what I was saying, in theory, we should get a corrective rally. I don't know if it's gonna go all the way up to, like, you know, 100k, and then we break back below and, you know, enter bear market. We've lost a lot of key levels, and the 88.6% fib is very, very, very deep for a retracement. So in other words, I'm not optimistic. We might get a relief rally. It's expected to get a relief rally up to around 100k, 95k maybe. But I'm not optimistic at the moment. And as I've been saying as well, just because we're oversold on the RSI, it doesn't mean that this is the low for Bitcoin. We could always go lower. We could always test these candles down here, basically, that are around 74k to 77k. There is always a chance that we could test this. You know, this pink line here is the major trend line for Bitcoin, in my opinion. This is a trend line that we've been holding since the start of the bull market in December 2022, when Bitcoin was at 17,000. So we've basically been holding this for quite some time. And, you know, if we did get all the way down to 74, 77k, it would not surprise me, and it also wouldn't look weird. You can see that we're also very, very close to getting to the oversold region on the weekly, which is massive for Bitcoin. So personally, I don't even care if we get stopped out. If we do go lower, I might just bid purely to just hold it for a relief rally, because I think because we're so oversold on the daily, we're approaching oversold on the weekly. We have touched the 88.6% fib level, and we got obviously some confluence down here at 77k. I think if we get there, it would be crazy not to just bid for at least a relief rally. That's my view at the moment on Bitcoin. Yeah, 17.5k. There's no real support at 76k. I mean, there is. You know, in terms of support, the only support you really have is the previous low. You know, the previous major low on the weekly, and that obviously does act as some form of support. You know, if we let's clean this up a little bit. Hang on, let me just take some. I'm gonna go in a minute, by the way, because like as I said, yeah, I am literally dying, but I'll go through this just before I leave. Okay. Right, let me just remember. Okay, cool. So if we take a fib from the 48k low to our 126 high, what have we got? Let's have a look. We have got, is that the 618? Yeah, that is the 618. So you can see here, right? We take the low here, which was at 48,000. Okay, that was our previous major swing low, where we basically had this ABC structure start, this final fifth wave. This is what I would call the final fifth wave to the upside. If we take that low and we take our high at 126k, our golden pocket region literally is sitting at 77,900, almost 78k. Which is why I'm saying there is a chance that we test this level. I wouldn't be surprised if we test this level. And you know, the confluence we have the wicks here. We have possibly a very small CME gap here. We have our weekly trend line. So very possible that we get down to this level. We may get a little relief rally into 86k and then possibly drop to 77 to 75k. So but as I said, like if Bitcoin does that, it might be a good opportunity to hold for a relief rally. But I don't pay attention too much to patterns, but this, as I said previously, does look like a head and shoulder pattern, where we may possibly form the right shoulder, you know, round about maybe 100k, 107k, and then if we break below that pink trend line, that would be officially game over, in my opinion. Yeah, 76 to 77k would be an epic bid. It would be an epic bid. I'm gonna go through Zig. If Trade and View now, Trade and View is now loading, which is good. Let's have a look. Not heard of Zig. Yeah, this looks fucking terrible, to be honest. This looks pretty bad. Not too much data. I mean, obviously, it's, you know, this is on the weekly, so a couple of years. ABC structure to the upside. I wouldn't really call this a 5-wave move. It looks like a 3-wave move. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This chart doesn't look very healthy, to be honest. Yeah, doesn't look healthy. I mean, look, you know, we touched the 618 here. We have no reaction. So, I mean, the next fib level is pretty far away, to be honest. It is pretty far away on this coin. You know, I wouldn't be trading this coin because the next fib level from here is literally like a 28% drop. So wouldn't touch it. That's just my personal opinion. Someone asked about Asta. Let's have a look at Asta. You know, Asta, I mean, it's really, really hard to say with Asta because everyone's super hyped for it, right? But it's barely been out. Like, I mean, you've not really got too much data to play with at the moment, you know? Oh, that's a bit too much. You know, we can obviously identify some areas where we can say, okay, we've got support. So, you know, you can see that maybe around this level here, around the 85% level, you can see that we've found some bottom of some sort. This area around, yeah, around here, let me just highlight that because it's not always one specific spot. It's kind of like a general region. This here is kind of acting as resistance for Asta. So you can see, you know, retest, broke out, retest, swing pattern failure, so deviation back below, and now retesting. So it's really difficult to say. I mean, with Asta, I would probably want to see us get back above this zone, maybe get like a 5-wave move above this previous high. And if we get like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we get above this previous high, then we could possibly look for a 3-wave move pullback, and that's basically going to be your entry to ride this out, possibly to, you know, the previous highs that we see here, around about maybe $1.9, and then obviously you've got previous highs here at $3. But yeah, definitely, like, I would say that would be the next region to look at for Asta. Just, this is basically, I'll draw it again, this is kind of your zone here, your support resistance flip. And you know, you could if you really wanted to trade this, I wouldn't trade this because this is kind of like it's a new chart. I don't mind trading new charts, but to be honest, with all the crap that's been going on recently, I'm just quite happy to stick with what we have. But yeah, you can basically do something like that, where your stop loss can basically be below the support resistance flip line. The region here, obviously, if we flip it, as I said, we get 5-wave up, 3-wave move down. Your entry would be somewhere around here, not exactly, but somewhere around here. Your stop loss would basically be like a 4-hour close or something like that below that support region, and then you would ride this up. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I am literally dying, so I'm probably going to leave it there for now. Really sorry about how late the stream was, but I really appreciate the people who have joined. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, just final message, really, just keeping an eye on Bitcoin at the moment. If we get back over this $86,000 region, $88,000 region, you know, that might be the first indication that low is in. But as I said, we haven't really got any confirmation. We're getting rejected from even this previous low here, which is now resistance, so we're even getting rejected from there. You can see a couple of times we've tried to break through and we're just kind of getting rejected. So just bear in mind, we still could go lower. We still could go to 77k, 74k. That is pretty much it for today. So I'll just stay safe. I'm obviously keeping an eye on our link trade as well. Yeah, obviously Bitcoin trade as well. And I'll obviously let you know if I see any new opportunities, but for now the market looks pretty trash and very, very weak. So definitely not opening any new trades. Yes, I will get some rest and blow my nose because I feel like I'm about to explode. Anyway, yeah, thanks very much guys for joining. Stay safe, preserve your capital, have a good weekend, and I'll speak to you guys next time. Peace out.